Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Rachel and Dana. This is a podcast where two book coaches, editors, and besties discuss books not as readers but as writers to draw inspiration from great books and have plenty of laughs along the way. I am just now realizing that in all the previous episodes, I forgot to say Rachel and Dana. Like, I just, welcome back to Story Deep Dive. You don't know who we are. This is a podcast where, and I'm like, oh, in the last ones, I forgot to say our names. That's interesting. So that's my small talk for today, everybody. So today, we are...
That's what she said.
Today, besides calling myself out on my inconsistencies and introducing the podcast, we are going to be talking about our final kind of takeaways from Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger. So we've been through the plot, we've talked through the characters, we've talked dark romance, we've talked plot holes, we've done all of the things, and so today we're just going to kind of wrap it up and send you on your way with some of our kind of key takeaways from this book. But before we do that, I always got to check in with my girl, my bestie, Dana Pittman. Dana, tell me, what is going on over there? I already gave you my small talk. I'm messing up intros on the podcast. What's new with you?
Ma'am, you will not slide to the side. Like, I'm going to get a blooper, and then I'm going to pass Mike.
Oh, no.
Look, check.
You know what I didn't do, though? I didn't talk about the agenda, so...
You did not. You have not at all. I'm so proud of you.
Growth.
It only took you 6 months, but who's counting? Like,
you know, we made it.
Listen, of course she goes, that's well. Well, one of the things that you and I were talking about was some of the things that we were doing over the summer in our communities. You've just launched your community, and then we have DTW as well as Inner Circle. And one of the things that we're doing let me back up. The backup, since your small talk was 2 seconds. I mean, I gotta give me 50 more seconds.
Wait, hang on. Let me break in really quick.
Go ahead.
I'm having a thought here. Because you were talking about how you're slowing down for the summer. You're like, okay, letting everyone have their summer break. Why was I like, who's ready to work twice as hard? And I launched the community. We're going to do a short project. I'm like, you got 6 months. Like, it's occurring to me as you're talking about, like, we're slowing down for the summer because the people are going on vacation. And I was like, no, we work all the time. So
trial by fire.
Choices we make. Anyway, please carry on.
Listen, I appreciate it, because you know what? The flip side is that people do travel, but at the same time, people have downtime.
Yeah.
So that is a flip side. That's a flip side. I mean, you do get into the busier months, but we're not talking about that. By that time, people are excited. You get NaNoWriMo, maybe.
Yeah.
You can round that out. It's a lot of ways to skin that cat, and I'm not skinning cats. One of the things that we talked about, other than Rachel picking up the summer, is that right before we plan our content for the year, at the end of the year. One of the things that I like to do, if all humanly possible, especially when you have an ongoing community, is have sort of like break weeks and break times where we still have stuff going on, but people can sort of know that it's a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Aiming for a low-hanging fruit, right? Really laid back. Up until this point, we were having workshops monthly, and this is when we sort of are chilling out because we sort of work on projects. So we sort of string them together. So one of the projects that we're working on is it's called Build an Author Box. Yes. And now at first, look, she's like, we don't have sound effects, y'all. Maybe when we grow and we get some sound effects or something. But I make myself dun dun dun. No, I was thinking about this in a sense of Keeman and I, y'all, that's my husband. We were talking about different ways to start moving towards having conversations about diversifying your income. you know? And you could talk about, well, you know, do direct sales, do all this stuff. And people say that, but a lot of people don't realize to do direct sales, there's a lot of moving parts to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And at first we were going to do something around that. And I was like, I don't even want to be responsible for that. So, we started talking some more about it. I was like, what about if we did like an author box? And we just started playing with that concept. And so the way that I see it is that there are a lot of people right now with with book talk and people starting to make special editions and limited editions of their books. You know, you have people either selling direct or doing custom boxes to either build fandoms, to be able to increase the earnings potential for your books if you do decide to do it direct, and to be able to just connect with your readers. One of the things that I was fascinated by when I went to RAM, which is, when did I go?
Oh my gosh, that was forever ago.
I can't remember when it was. Oh, it was like October, November, something.
That's why it feels like forever ago, because it was last year.
Yeah, it was last year, right. One of the things that one of the presenters said was that she had 26 editions of one of her books. 26. Same story.
That's a lot of it.
It was a lot.
That is a lot of editions.
She listed them. And the point to me, which the big takeaway for me was like, you already have the story. What else can you do? Mm-hmm. Right? And so we're baby stepping into it with this author box. And so every month I am, instead of doing a workshop, I'm releasing a module that covers a different aspect. So the first month was on budgeting and starting to think about your concepts and ideas. And then the next installment will come up this coming month where we'll start talking about your first products that you want to actually to put in there. So looking at different print on demand places, if you want to do bookmarks or stickers, or if you want to do a mug or a shirt or that kind of thing. And so, and then every month we're going to keep adding until we get to about, I think it's like September, October, where you may want to put together a prototype. And there may be some that are going to do it digitally, so they won't do a physical. But my point of this, which is the bigger picture, when some people is like, well, we have some people that don't live here in the country, so I don't have access to all of those things, which I understand. Then you have someone who's like, I'm doing enough just to write and publish, which I also understand. But my thought is, most people want to do the thing when they need it. And now you're starting from scratch. You don't know which print on demands you like. You don't know how to, get a template from the printer like Printable or Printify and use Canva to make a design, blah, 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 right? Because you haven't had to do it versus us doing one or two little things a month. You could tinker and play, maybe create some designs. One person was like, you know what? I have a Cricut I don't even use, the cutting machine. She was like, I'm going to pull that out. Then had another student in our community. She was like, I made one for my last launch to do as a giveaway. And she put up pictures. And it was just really, it was adorable, so simple. She made a couple of stickers. She found a color box on Amazon. So everybody's now starting to and my thought was the final thing is this. Number one, you want to know how to do it before you need it. The other thing is that most people don't realize what it takes to do it. So just researching the prices, how much it would cost you. There are others that are really, really interested in doing promo boxes to book talkers. The point is, you've got to do this stuff, and it's got to be done well in advance. So us doing this over the summer, starting to put together. So I'm doing the modules, and then while I'm just like me writing, while I'm doing it with putting together the lessons, I'm doing it. So we're doing one, but we plan to actually do it, even though I think I'm going to change my mind about the actual box. But the point is, I'm going to do it for a holiday box. So I'm building a Christmas box. So yeah.
Okay. All right, hang on. I have two separate questions.
Come on.
But first, I have to just be excited because, so sweet, dear, precious listener or viewer, this is the first time that I'm hearing about this. Like, we were talking about it off recording, and Dana was like, "We haven't talked about this yet," and I was like, "No!" And so I'm just like, okay, I am invested. I need more information. So first of all, I think the idea of doing a Christmas box is so great because that's a really great type of like gift to give the book lover in your life something that's extra special, right? Like, I love getting books, but if you get me, like, because you guys, so I don't know if the podcast listeners know, but Dana, you know me, I love Brandon Sanderson, and I love his merch. Like, I think that his team designs really cool merch. So you can get me a Brandon Sanderson book, and I think that's a great gift. But then you but you get something like a box that is like thematic and it's got cool stuff with it. Like, that's such a nice way to take a gift and elevate it, really, and just it makes it extra special for like Christmas. So anyway, I'm just very excited that this exists, that this is a thing that you're doing. Now, I'm only partially familiar with author boxes as a concept. So I know that they exist, but I haven't seen them because like I haven't bought any. Like, I haven't, this is sort of unfamiliar territory to me. So author boxes, there's like different stuff you can do with them. So you use them for giveaways, send them to influencers, book talkers, that kind of thing. Are they something that like, do they sort of exclusively stay inside that kind of like marketing promotional material? Is it something that you sell? Do you do them for like pre-orders? Like, what all do you do with an author box?
You can do all of that. So there are, remind me later, because like the post that I did this past week, when I put up the first module, I gave some examples that you can find on like YouTube. If you go on TikTok, they're everywhere, but mainly because people are sending them to book talkers.
Yeah.
But my stance is that you can do them for anything. Back in the day, we used to do them for PR. We used to send them out when ARCs were not digital but physical. You can sell them. There are some that if you look on like Book Talk, they'll even do like packing videos, showing them packing boxes to go to their readers who have purchased a book. So it's really just about how you want to do it. Some sell it. I saw this, I ended up seeing a woman who did the most adorable box, and she did it on YouTube, and she sold them, but it was meant to be like a limited edition. So she had like an enamel pen, and what she did was sort of like, you can't see it, but I used to have a subscription, it's up there, where they would have the book and have little tabs throughout the book where you go and open a gift in the box. That would be aligned.
It's like an advent calendar, but in your book.
Yes. And that's how she did hers. So like, for example, like in the, like one of the items was like, she went and met up with her uncle who was in his little VW van. And that's what her enamel pen was, a little. And so I think what it is like, what I was telling them in the first module was like, just stop and just think. Like, just think about what do you want the experience to be? And that's actually an upcoming module of like, what do you want people to feel? What do you want them to say? Yeah. And I think it can be as simple as bookmark. It could be, you having nice tissue paper, a nice box. Girl, I love to open a box. I don't care what's in it. I don't know why. It just makes me happy. And then it could be some people that do really detailed things like tea bags or enamel pens or book sleeves, because we've looked at book sleeves. One of the things that we have coming up in ours as a little sneak peek, we'll be giving away one of the quilts that I made, a handmade quilt.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so during the holiday season, that'll be a part of our giveaway. So I think part of this is like, one, having a budget and staying within budget and having fun. And then having a way to sort of start creating this sort of environment. You can do something that is either very, very specific. I wish I had like it's over tucked in the corner. Like one of my clients, he does a box for every single release. Like it's very fancy, but he does a release every couple of years. So you really could do that like really specifically, but there's somewhere you buy the items so they're just branded generally so that you can just include them in every book, you know, some bookmarks, a stamp or stick, what's popular now, stickers, you know, using your wax stamp, a hand signed card, whatever. And just deciding how you want to interact and engage. And some sell them. Some you just get the merch and it's just a part of when you people get a signed copy. And so you just sort of decide. And this is what all the sort of the first couple of months is sort of like, okay, well, what do I want to do? What kind of stickers do I want to get? Do I want to do a sticker sheet? Do I want to do them myself? Do I want to order out to do them? Do I want to do little trinkets in there? Do I want to be very like utilitarian where it's something they can use, right? Like a bookmark or so,
I
career
love
rolling.
That's okay. Well, first of all, I cannot wait to see your box when it's done. Because I know that you love like good presence, thoughtful touches. Like you are someone who, like you've talked about the way that when you used to do writing retreats and stuff like that, that you would, you know, curate a gift sort of upon arrival. So I know that this is one of those things that you have such a great mind for.
I love.
And I love that it is an opportunity to connect with your readers in a new way, right? Like it's just, you know, I love this thing that you can connect with them on a shared, it's almost like in an inside joke, right? Like your sticker sheet is unique to your book. So you might have, you know, quotes or images that are like specific to your story. And so then they kind of get this this identifier of something that they share with you and your book and other readers of your book, right? It kind of makes me think of on Twitch, you know, once you are, I don't know, it might have changed now, but once you're an affiliate and you're kind of a little bit more established, you're able to like make your own community. You can have custom emotes that people can use right in your channel. And so it's stuff that becomes representative of who your community is and the kinds of inside jokes that you have as a community and the way that you kind of are now a unit together with the streamer in that community and with other members of the community. And it becomes this, again, this way of engaging people as well as this sort of unifying element. So I just think it's great to, you know, as a creative, think about the ways that you engage your audience beyond your, you know, okay, I have my email newsletter and I write my books and, you know, but thinking about like, how can I make more and more meaningful connections with them and build that sense of community around these worlds and these characters that that I and my readers love.
Yeah, and I think about that is first of all, me as a person, when it's something to do that, I just love it. So I have to also have restraint because girl, you know, I'd be like, I want custom tea bags, I want shirts, I want mugs, like I want all the things. And it can also be all of that in as simple as you build one and do a giveaway and build your newsletter, right? You can build a newsletter, you know, 200, 300, 1,000 people just because they're entering to be able to potentially win this sort of curated personal sort of box to you. And I like the fact that once you know that information, you know it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have different things coming up about limited edition books, hardback, foiled edges. If you want to do make print products, how do you get the templates in? And it is one of those things that as a coach, like I'm not trying to do all the things. So that's the good thing that I'm telling myself, but giving resources, finding different videos. And then you really got to decide, because at the end of the day, the people that are part of my community, you're your own boss. This is your business. But this is a great way to see what other people, so even already we've started having people do digital sort of snapshots of the things that they're looking at. And like me, as an example, I was looking for like little bells because I was like, how cool would it be when you get your package? It's already like,
has a sound.
And like, what can I do to make it scented when you open it? You know, that's not food, but that as soon as you open it, it's like, because you know how Christmas smells.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like small things, but even me, I'm like, well, dang, what do you put in a sash? I don't know. So, you know, and I was like, well, maybe if I put a little tea bag, I don't know, or put it in a tissue, like, so even just those little decisions, I just don't want it to smell good, but I don't want people are allergic, and I don't want it to be food, and I don't.
Yeah.
So
There's other legit, you sort of have those. It's honestly, it reminds me too of like when I first did the Crime Writers Workbook, and I finished it and it was ready to go, you know, and I was getting ready to sell it, and it's, you know, primarily a digital product, but then I was like, oh man, it'd be really like, because I did a prototype of a printed, and it was wonderful in print. Like, it was spiral bound. It was so satisfying to hold and use. There was loads of space to work. It is so expensive to print a small number of things.
Girl, which I was trying to tell you, you needed to get with me, because it is, but there are places that you can go to do it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this too. Yeah. Because as someone who has been around a long time, we know, as in I know the nook and crannies of where you can look for things. And a lot of times, and what's really great about now is it's a lot more accessible than when I started. I was even thinking about that today, because I had pulled out, like, this is one of the workbooks that we've done before. And, you know, spiral bound, and, you know, I like a hardcover, but it's like one of those things that you just, once you know, you can't unknow. And there are print on demand, but there are even like, I know one of the printers that I work with, they even have a program that you can assemble boxes and have them in their warehouse, and they can send them out for you. Right. If you get to a point that you really want to. Now, some people say, well, I don't want to do that many. But at the same time, there are someone else that says, but I do. Right. I do. I want to be able to scale that way, and being able to outsource that or have it stored in a warehouse and they send it out on your behalf is something that is, you know, it's a possibility unlike any other time. There are even some companies that will create the print-on-demand items, assemble them, and create the box for you. I know many coaches that I've received some from them that they send through these types of companies. They don't send it because they don't have a big staff. But you do that, and you just go ahead and pay a little bit more for it, and it sort of extends your reach. And so I think it's just about one of the things that I think is so amazing about right now, when it comes to being an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, that books are a part of your business, is that you have so many options that before you would have to buy 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000 copies of a book. Now you can go buy one book. You know, I was speaking to someone who does custom hardback books, limited edition books. If you want that, you know, you buy, I think the minimum is 50 or something like that. When before you would have to buy thousands.
Oh yeah.
So
and print on demand has hugely, I think, changed. You know, I think about indie authors being able to make available print copies of their books through print on demand, because they don't have to buy 100, 500 copies and then keep them at their house to mail out if someone should choose to buy one, right? Even that, and that's just, I mean, we've had print on demand forever now, seems like, and that's just scratching the surface of what has been made available in the last, I don't know, 15 years, 10, 15
I would say
years?
A little bit less, but yeah. Now, print on demand, yes, but now you have everything else with it beyond just books. You have the apparel, you have mugs, you have bags, you have, like, it's literally turns into name it, whatever it is you want to do within reason, you know. But my biggest thing was that, number one, everything that everyone's going to want to do will be different. 2, everybody's budget is different. And 3, what people want to do with their brand is different. Some people say, I'm just good just doing ebooks. I'm just good with ebooks. And then there's others that, no, I like seeing my books in print. I like being able to have copies on hand. I like, and now it's just about whatever it is that you want and or are willing to take the steps to fulfill, then knock yourself out. You ain't hurt nobody.
I love that.
So as people start doing it and taking pictures, I'll keep you posted because I've seen some ideas. And then I think a lot of them are going to be like, oh my goodness, because I was talking to my VA yesterday. Oh no, was it yesterday? No, Saturday. And we're talking about doing something that's almost exclusively digital and just really talking about it because we're about to launch our audiobooks. And so I was like, that would be the best way to launch them. And so, so we're just like always thinking, not in or outside the box, just doing our own thing.
Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and jump into talking about Beautifully Cruel. So we are going to get into some takeaways here. First, before we do anything else, can you give me a summary, or give the good people of the podcast a summary?
Not of the podcast. Okay. Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger is a slow burn romantic I'm gonna say it because I've said it in all the episodes, y'all. It's a slow burn romantic suspense that blends dark romance elements with emotional depth. The story follows Trudy Sullivan, a lost student and waitress whose world shifts after she's rescued by Lem Black, a silent, dangerous man with ties to the underworld. What begins as a 28-day arrangement turns into an intimate, high-stakes exploration of trust, control, and desire. With a focused plot, tight POV, and emotional intensity, it's a compelling study in how to write romance with simmering tension and layered character arcs.
Excellent. Okay, well, first of all, I am going to say, because I think I said this off the recording, but so we've had a lot of discussion about this book, and the tea was spilled in the previous series when we talked about it on Janet Ivanovich at the end of that series. One for the money when we talked about the book, and I was like, oh, it didn't work for me, and you were like, how dare you? And then we talked about it, and we mutually agreed on the holes, and it just so happened that, like, they didn't, like, as a reader, they didn't bother you, but as a reader, they bothered me, and that helped me as a person to just not feel like, what am I missing? Like, am I absolutely crazy? So the only reason that that's actually important is because we did talk that there are a number of holes that kind of are just like that, where the book, right, where some of the expectations were kind of set up, and then they didn't quite deliver on the expectations that were set in Act 1. We had some conversation about True as a character, and where there was a little bit of that inconsistency almost. So I want to start with, like, and in the overview we talk about, what is dark romance, and this is being not, it's dark romance light, like we are just dipping our toes into dark romance. So who should be looking at a book like this, and what should someone be taking away from this book? Since we kind of identified some of its pitfalls, like, what should someone be taking away if they read this book?
Well, the first thing that I'm going to say before I get in and answer your question, and so I'm holding on to the question. If I forget, I may ask again. I think is one of the sort of cornerstones of our conversations for this podcast is the fact that we are reading like writers. And so me, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you don't like it. That's Dana the reader, right? I still believe that because I love this story. This is one of my favorite stories. But when you are looking at something as a writer and me looking at something as an editor, it's a little bit different, right? Because part of this is my goal as an editor is to always help you to stack the odds in your favor. Having a setup that you don't fully pay off is not stacking the odds in your favor. Yeah. Now, there are some people who can do it and get away with it. People who can have plot twists that come from I don't know where. Like you just threw that in for giggles and grins. There are people who do it. Some people get away with it. Some people don't. You don't know which one you are, so don't bank on that, right? Yeah. And also, I think sometimes with that, it also requires you to not just be creative, but just make intelligent writing choices, right? And making it so that it is logical, because what happens in the end is that we end up as readers at the same place that you end up, and we feel more fulfilled because we got to that place as a reader on our own based on the story that you presented us. And so that is what we're looking for when we are talking about it as like writers and as editors. And as a reader, y'all, if you give it a good voice and you keep the plot moving enough, okay, I will forgive a multitude of sins. Okay.
I think Dana's a bit more of a forgiving reader than I am. I think.
Listen, she's over there, this is the dust off of hers. I ain't doing that over here. I will take. Listen, and also, I will have to say this too. As a person who reads a lot, I read a lot. I love a good entertaining read that does not require me to think. Now, I may be like, that was a stretch, but I keep it going, you know? And I think it is an entertaining read. I think it could have been, there are some things that could have made it better, but it is an entertaining read. So with that said, I believe, I can't remember if we talked about this, but I will say people who I recommend reading this book to, because we read this book as a part of our Storyteller Book Club. This is a book that we read. I think this is a great example of a book that dances with dark elements, but that is not a dark romance. Again, dark romance is very popular. Mafia romance is really popular. This could be considered, if you want to call it, a light mafia romance. That's not a true category, but you will see that sometimes added to descriptions because it is basically mafia adjacent. Your main male character may be a part of mafia. Sometimes you may find that the female main character is like the daughter of a mob boss or blah, 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 you know? So it's sort of adjacent, and therefore it can sort of lend itself of a potential read to people who like to gobble up those types of reads. So I do like it for that aspect, the fact that she carries off being adjacent without fully exposing. And the reason why I like that is because a lot of times if you're a new writer, that fully exposing means a whole lot. Because then I have one client, if she researches the dog out of everything, right? I'd be like, girl, if you don't just start writing and figure out what you need when you get there. She'd be like, I need to research divorces. I mean, girl, if you don't get to writing. And so, and then, when it comes to mafia, people who really like mafia, there are certain things like understanding the hierarchy, understanding how they work, understanding what type of trade and types of businesses they tend to run that are those gray businesses. And y'all, if you ever are a dark romance person, please make sure you visit the Mafia Museum in Las Vegas. It's one of the best museums ever. I literally spent like 7 or 8 hours in that museum.
Oh my!
And didn't even realize it. I was like, why are my feet hurting? And Kima was like, we've been here 8 hours. I was like, I was so fascinating. Anyways, it tells you all about it, even international mafias. Very, very good. So the point is, and they have real footage, FBI footage, images, film. Oh, it's so good.
Ooh, especially for you who loves just picking apart how people work and stuff like that. Like that is, oh my gosh, you were in heaven. I'm just mad that I wasn't there with you. Honestly, that's my only gripe about it. It's like, no, I wish I had been there.
Listen, come on, we need to go. Girl, I literally was like, why are my feet hurting? Q was like, we've been here 8 hours. I was like, what? We had been there 8 hours. They even have a forensic area where you get to look at the evidence, like blood samples and what you're looking at and everything. Yes. Even where you pretend like you're cops taking down a scene. And yeah, we did all of it.
We need an affiliate link to like for like the mob museum in Las Vegas. Like we need to like get with them and be like, hey, look, we're gonna start pointing people to your museum. Can we get an affiliate link for the podcast?
Listen, so but with that said, a lot of times for people thinking about having to do that, it makes them very nervous, which makes sense. Another person that may find it that they don't want to cross that line fully is they don't want to deal with organized crime. Whether it's for moral or ethical reasons, they just don't want to deal with it. But it is something that is popular, or they want to deal with a character like a Lynn Black that sort of has that pendulum of like, he is a really good guide and protective guide to her. But when it comes to the grand scheme of things and where he is in the world, in the mafia sort of hierarchy, Lynn Black is a bad dude. You know what I'm saying? As I said with a smile. And some people don't want to cross that line. And sometimes they just don't want to cross that line in the beginning, and then they realize, okay, I got to cross that line if I want to go all the way.
Yeah.
So this is one of those books that sort of sits on that sort of right before you cross over. The other thing that I find is, even though if you look anywhere, it's going to really come back that this is a romantic suspense. Based on the way we talk about it here on the podcast, and if you talk about a true romantic suspense, I personally wouldn't call it that. Yeah. I would call it a romance that may have some suspense subplot, maybe, and that even is a little bit of a stretch. Yeah. But being that if you take the totality of some of the subplots, that'll give you enough to say, okay, maybe you could say romantic suspense. And I feel like it does a really great job at, because it is adjacent, being a true romance. It is a real, true romance. And so if somebody's sort of struggling with some of those aspects, you can still see it within the context of having some of those dark elements. And so that is one of the reasons. Also on the top, it's an easy read. Go ahead.
Can I interject with a question? Mm-hmm. What do you mean a true romance as opposed to what else? Like what would...
A love story, something that doesn't have a happily ever after, something that really is a suspense with the subplot of romance, and they're selling it as a, I would say this is truly a romance. It's a romance.
Yes, and it is through and through.
Yeah, I separate romance and love story, and then I'm not saying in a sense where the romance is a subplot. The romance is the driving factor here, period, right?
Yeah.
And so that's another reason. I think a lot of the other elements within that are really clear. They're very clear. And that's another story, especially if someone is new. And I also think this is a great, it's kind of like a gateway drug, but it's a great introduction if you think you might, because when I'm working with clients that do want to write dark romance, this is a great one to have first or after they've had a real dark romance, and then have this, and then having a conversation and beginning to make some of the decisions like we talked about in our sort of introductory talk. And one of the, actually we've already had it about some of those decisions that you make that have a big impact. Like, do you want to have the violence on the page or off? How do you feel about shooting and killing on page? How do you feel about dubious consent? Because that's a big thing in dark romance. How do you feel about scenes that could be questionable consent? And sometimes when I say dubious, it's like she kind of says yes, but she kind of says no. And questionable, where she doesn't say no. Right. And for some people, that is triggering, right? That's totally triggering. But when you talk about this story, none of that was true. There's very little that you would put on the scale of triggering per se. And so having sometimes, especially when I'm working with those clients one-on-one, where we need to have that when we are in a mentorship and it's like we're doing their doppelganger book, having that book and then having them read this book when they start they're unsure how they want to pick those elements, having these sort of, that becomes our spectrum, then that helps to make a lot of things clear. Like, do you remember when this happened? This would be dark, right? And so I will also say, as someone who works with people who write dark romance, especially if it's their first sort of writings of romance, I do have some that switch to dark romance. I find that I have different categories that are not in the general definition, but it makes it so it's easy for us to plot and to ensure that they have the elements. So I do look at the dark romance aspect in the present, which is like their profession, their environment, maybe in some of the dynamics of the relationship of how they treat each other, meaning we are talking about power dynamics and between him and her. Another way that you can look at a dark aspect could be from the backstory, trauma, abuse. All of that can be the nature of what turned them, and that story is continuously being brought into. So therefore, it usually causes that spectrum of that story to tilt towards the darker side. Not dark as far as crime, but dark as in what you're going to be up against. That could be triggering. That could be, some of them it's been abuse. It's been all types on both sides. You can find it. And then the other part that probably is the most commonly thought of, which would be if you're dealing with organized crime, mafia, and having the debts and everything on page, a lot of it without sort of judicial involvement or police involvement. So, which is really different than when you talk about crime in the sense of like in your world where it's in a landscape of where justice and sort of investigation and where we're trying to find the killer. Listen, there'd be bullets a flying,
Yeah.
But with that said, having those sort of parameters, this is a really great book to be able to see some of the differences. And even just like one of the things that you pointed out on Lynn Black, 9 out of 10, they don't want to get out. They have no intentions of get out. Now, every once in a while, you'll have one that may want to get out, but they're kind of like your John Wick get out, right? I'm getting out, but before I go,
we're gonna clean house before I head out.
listen, burn, baby, burn. Okay, all for your dog, all for your dog. So, again, back to original question. This is why having this sort of story that's pretty clear cut. If you're not going into some of the things of does it work or not, it's still very clear cut. It's easy for us to have a conversation. It's easy for us to kind of pick out the pros and the cons. And then it's also easy for us to make some of those decisions before they start plotting, start thinking about series. And for some people, for them to decide if this is what they really want to do. Because then when we go to something darker like, talking about Twisted Love or The Kiss Thief or something by Nicole Fox or some of those other stories that really kind of can get nitty gritty, you got to just decide, where you want to fall in that, and making some of those decisions that she made. And a lot of those core decisions tilted more towards romance than dark. So
absolutely. And when I was thinking like, this is one of those books that if you have a client who's thinking maybe they want to go dark and they read this book and they're like, oh, I don't know about that. You're like, okay, you don't want to do dark.
You don't want to do it.
You don't want to do dark.
Exactly.
No. All right, come over here, baby. It's okay. It's okay.
We were like, just like when you did, when you first did, what's the one with the vampire?
Dead Until Dark?
Yes. Ooh, that's spicy. I was like, are we reading the same story? Even though now I would say you're a little bit right. But it is. It's sort of like a gauge. Because sometimes, again, people are coming and they want to do what's profitable and they want to do what's market aligned, and they see this and then they be like, oh, I want to do that. I'm like, how many have you read? Oh, I haven't. Oh, okay, let's read a couple. And that becomes, the test. And I think this one, and because I just love it, it's an easy audiobook. Y'all know, if you don't know, now you know. Whenever we do these, I'm almost always for having an audiobook. I was for a long time a person who was not a huge fiction audiobook listener, but now I am, especially if you think you want to read this as a writer and read this several times. Having it in audiobook allows you to get that first pass and ensure that this is a book that you want to put your time into. You may spend $10 or $15 or credit on Audible, but it will allow you to sort of get through that while you're doing some other things and decide, is this the one? I will do this as a little adjacent, and we didn't do this story, and maybe we will, but I know you know this story, Rachel, just as another sort of example, thinking about this in comparison to things we left behind. No.
The things we hide from the light.
Exactly. Right? Now, the first out of the gate, people would not say dark romance on that. Mm-hmm. But he technically is morally gray. Right? Because his actions and how he gets things done are morally gray.
Wait, hang on. Are we talking about
Lucian.
Nash or are we talking Lucian? Oh, Lucian. Okay. Is that the things we hide from the light? Or is
I don't know. I only know the first one, and I thought I had them in
things, and
I have them in order, and I thought I had them in 1, 2, 3 order. The point is the one with Lucian.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, but the other elements of it, according to my classification in helping people with writing it, it does have dark elements in it. Mm-hmm. His childhood.
Yeah.
The situation and circumstances he was under. Now, the great thing is that the primary person, in that case being Sloane, did not experience that, but she was there with him. So we don't get into the nitty gritty. We kind of see it from a distance versus in dark romance, you would be a little closer to it, right? Yeah. And it would be a little louder, if you will.
Yeah.
And that it also leads to their actions going on the more darker side versus it being the way he did it and going into political, I don't want to say manipulation, but
consulting.
Yeah. Come on.
That's how we're going to say it.
Consulting. So yes, political consulting. And also that a lot of times, well, I will say this last thing about that before you go to another question. One of the things, though, that I love about dark romance, and this is not there, but this does, I think, have the aroma of that, if you will, which is I find that in dark romance, you really get to explore the totality of the human experience, right? Like you really do you get the good and you get the bad. Like
and
bad,
the real.
bad.
Yeah,
right. You get the bad, like that I feel like I'm justified, and you get the bad. I don't care if it's justified or not. I'm doing it. Watch me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I like that. I think it makes for very interesting storytelling. And we do have an upcoming selection where I feel like she operates in that spectrum. That you could classify it as dark, but I think it's because you get the totality, and not only do you get it from left to right, but you get the depth. Yeah. Because your highs and your lows really are
higher and lower because of, that's I want to highlight that actually. It's something really interesting when you're listening to this and you're a writer. I think that's something that you want to think about with your story. Now, it might not be, you might not be thinking about it first draft. You might be, but depending on just, how much you know and how comfortable you are, really asking yourself, how far do I want to explore? Like, what are the parameters in which I would like to explore? So dark romance, because you said, sometimes people will read it and they will say, why would you like that? Right. And it's like, ugh, because it's kind of like, it can make you uncomfortable. But there are some writers who want to explore different, the corners of human experience that are darker and grittier. And so I think as a writer, whether you're writing, I think it's really important to think about when you're writing romance, but to think about any writer telling a story, thinking about what are the parameters of human experience that you want to explore, especially within the story that you're telling. Because you think about something like Ninth House, right?
That's what I was just
dark.
thinking.
We get into trauma, we get into
Yes.
abuse, we get into the and it pairs really nicely with the sort of horror elements of the story, so that it's very clear, and it's clear brand wise, it's clear from the moment that we open up the book and start reading that this is going to be dark. And if we're starting here,
Yes. In a
buckle up.
perfect world, exactly, it should go. Should be the easiest that it is. And I think I was just thinking about the same thing with Ninth House. The fact that she went there gave her that total landscape. And do I think that's for every story? No. And I would recommend thinking about that well in advance, right? Because a lot of times certain parameters, how much treatment you give their backstory, how much of it is going to come to the page, what parts of it is going to bleed over into their now, because all of that affects their perspective. It affects how they see the world, how they live the world, the type of truths that they've adopted. And here's the thing that makes romance in this capacity so delicious. Yeah, I'll say delicious. It's the fact that then you talk about something that can be a pure thing like love permeating through this moment. And now I will say there are dark romance books out there that are the ones that are like people that are degrading and bondage and here's the thing about that at the end of the day. Some people think that how dare you? Some people think bring it on, whips and chains. So it just may not be your thing, but it is someone's thing. And that is a part of that spectrum too.
Yeah. And I think these are again, that's all stuff that you are thinking that you want to think about to position your book as well. Of I think there's probably something to be said for in the marketing. If you're writing a dark romance, what nature of dark romance you're writing probably is useful, I'm assuming, in your marketing, so that people understand sort of which side of dark romance they're getting, even if, because I know that you said that in dark romance, it's generally just dark romance, mafia romance, it's not super subdivided, but making clear in your marketing to some degree what flavor of dark romance they're getting is would that be something that is important in your marketing?
I think one of the things that probably you have to be careful of is that sometimes things can be classified in ways that you don't want it to be classified as. I would say in those cases, you really want to look at the actual cover, be very familiar with the author, read the blurb, because some will really tell you. And if you open the look inside and there's trigger warnings, well, then that starts giving you a hint. And some will also put it at the bottom of their blurb. You may even see it sometimes in reviews, like, oh, this is so good, or some of the, what do you want to call it? Endorsements, if you will. But most authors that is their lane, it. I think, again, one of the stories that we have coming up, without me giving it away now, I don't think that it's just like, oh, this is dark romance, but you do know it. And you know it based upon she plays with emotions. She plays she's no emotion is going to be left untouched in some of her books. And it does play with that scale considerably. And so I think it really comes down to, I kind of feel like if you were to put dark romance as a thing, it could feel like it's limiting, but I think depending on how you treat it, it can be an open doorway to explore whatever that character's experience is. And I think that is freedom and creativity, right? I have somewhere I play with that. I don't like to go all the way just because I don't go all the way there. But knowing where there is is equally as important
Yeah.
as whether you want to do it or not. Of like, okay, well, what are those lines? Some of the things that we've talked about here of like, the fact that he, some of the choices that Lynn Black makes at the end of the story, some of the choices that he makes on the page and what he does for her and how he protects her, some of the decisions that he's made for his life because of his lifestyle, and how he has closed himself off, and where the primary focus of this story for him is really whether he will let love in. Well, and you will see at some point he's okay with whatever to have it for this period of time. And I think that's just one of the things that makes the story different, and I think it makes it enjoyable while beginning to learn those lessons and set those boundaries.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about off recording, is like reading this and hearing you talk about it relative to dark romance. It made me like, okay, it's maybe for me it's like a little bit morbid curiosity, because I'm 90% sure probably dark romance won't be my thing,
But you like horror. You like Ninth House.
I do, but some of the more dubious elements, it might make me cringe more than I'm like, oh yeah, gritty and murder, because I love gritty and murder, but it's like, so
Yeah.
but it got me, like wondering like, okay, what is an actual dark romance? And so it's really kind of
We're gonna read
my curiosity, and fortunately we are going to get to that.
We are.
And it'll be a really cool conversation to have, because we've had this one, so we have sort of these anchor points to look at them and compare and contrast them a little bit later in the year. I wanted to take a second just to highlight one last thing that was kind of on our list of stuff we wanted to talk about. And this actually connects right into, making those intentional writing choices, your gritty stories, and how you let people know what they're in for. And just one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation, and I harped on it enough in the plot episode, I just want to pull it through here, of like setting up your first act so that you can, like, part of setting up the first act, it's not just about hooking your reader. It is. You want to hook your reader, but you want to hook your reader with the kind of stuff they're going to get in the story. Because what you're doing is you're hooking them by saying, this is pretty cool, right? Wait till you see what comes later. It's only getting better from here. Not, isn't this interesting? And then you bait and switch them with something else. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but just as contrasting, we think about the first act so much about, we're so worried about hooking our reader. We want to make sure we're hooking them on the right promises for the story, so that when we deliver on those, they are like, oh man, it's even better. Like, you hooked me, and then you fully delivered on what you promised. And I think in particular, one of the reasons that's important, like on this conversation, is for issues like dark romance, and making sure that when a reader picks up your book, and if it's going to be dark, they know it's dark, so they don't get startled midway through and they're like, oh no, or a few chapters in or whatever. But setting those, it's like Cold and Deadly, right? The way that it set the tone for, this is the kind of story you're getting. And in that first chapter, everything was in there. Ninth House, that prologue, you're like, oh, we have bone jutting out of a leg, we have magic, and it's kind of yucky. Like, it tells us right up front what kind of story we're getting. And so that way your reader can sign up for it, get excited about it, and then you can satisfy and deliver on that thing that you promised them. So that first act really is important for, again, not just hooking, but hooking on the right promises and really being aware of that.
I agree. I'm gonna say two things, and y'all know how we record these, and if you don't, what's up? And now you know we record these all in the same day. So by the time we get in, I'm questionable. Listen, you just pulling off the stuff that's just all in here anyway. The first thing that I'm going to say is, as a reminder, I believe sometimes, every story is not meant to be studied, right? I believe that. Mainly because there are some people that you just write the story as it came to you, and that's just how it came to you. And you dropped it like it's hot, and you let it lay where it lay, and you walked on. And then, but if you are aiming to study, I think being intentional about the structure that you're studying so that it can help you, right? I think this is a great story, but it may not help you if you are still a little bit wobbly on course structure. You will want that course structure to be locked in so that this can just help bring in some dimension and some elements and some comparison in a very fun and entertaining way. And there's good writing here, right? And it's just some of those things that probably could have been done a little bit better. So with that said, I would say, so that's the first thing. The other thing that I have to say is I think that the risk that you run, it was actually three things. This is the second. The risk that you run when you don't do this is you can lose people that could potentially become really good fans. Like they could become fans because you've already got them that far. You got them through the first act, and then you go on, and then you kind of missed this opportunity because you didn't end the way that you started. And carry that on through. So I would be very intentional about that. And the final thing is, and I think this is more of an example. I was reading a book. There's some books that I'm just reading for me and I just have to pick up and put down because workbooks kind of will be the priority. But I remember going to get this book at the bookstore and I just wanted something different that I wouldn't have naturally come across. So when I was in Barnes & Noble, I picked it up. I'm reading the first paragraph. My face is on the floor because I'm waiting in the waiting room with a family member at a surgery. And my face is on the floor because in this first chapter, it was either a chapter or a prologue, we already knew that somebody was abusing drugs to the point where they got kicked out of professional sport, got hooked on pain meds, now has bookies coming to look for his family. The ex gets stumped out to the point she blacks out and her kid is in the house. This is all in the prologue. Listen.
Oh my God.
She said, this is what you are going to get. Do you hear what I'm saying? So going beyond that, now I'm trying to finish the book to see if she holds on to that. But I closed the book and I just kept looking at the cover. Like,
what is this?
They stumped that woman out, and I was just I was clutching my pearls because I didn't even have pearls on. I was clutching them because I was like, I was not ready. But to me, then for the chapter 1 to be, oh, she's a small bakery owner with a little kid, taking her kids to hockey practice. I was like,
you get into chapter 1 and you're like, I'm not falling for this. I know.
So what she did, she showed you in the prologue, which was in the past, and we fast forwarded, but it let you know, hey, this could get gritty. And I think sometimes we don't know until we do it, and we just realize, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. But seeing really great examples, or seeing examples where this could have been better, and knowing for yourself, okay, maybe some things that you could do differently. This story is what it is, and I still think it's a great story. But I think knowing those types of things of like, okay, I want someone to read this and know this is what to expect. Now, and I could say that as one of the things about this. You don't see any of that until we get further in. Now, you see who he is, and we do sort of close that loop. It just maybe didn't pull through as strongly as it should have. But we didn't, I didn't think it was going to be, all this, what it turned out to be. But, beginning to really know, like, what are those setups? Looking at your comps, looking at your other stories. What do you want readers to sort of get when they're with your first impression? Beyond having a really great first few pages. That's a given, right? We want to do that anyway. But what are you telling them?
Yeah.
With those first few pages?
Yeah.
Can they expect humor? Can you expect a bunch of shenanigans? Can you expect a love story? Can you expect a whodunit? Like, what, the reason why body drops in the first couple of pages is because we want you to know body's going to be dropping. And so I think just starting to even realize that that's what you're signaling helps you to be able to use those signals in your favor.
Yeah.
To be able to pull on those things, when it comes to it. And so I think those are the final three things. And I think this is a really great set of episodes to sort of look at that we have differing opinions and then sort of the same opinion at the same time, understanding the difference between reading as a reader and a writer, and then beginning to come away with, okay, what are the things that I want people to take away when they read my first act, and did I deliver?
Yeah.
Not just at the beginning and end, all the
Yeah.
way through. All the way through. Can you draw a line all the way from beginning to end that in some way, shape, or form that element is somewhere, even if it's silent, even if it's hidden, that it's still on the page.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is, one of those things where this is why it's important to read lots of books, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just read this book and you were like, this is what dark romance,
Exactly.
or, you walk away with potentially a conclusion that isn't correct. Even, because this is something we talked about off recording, even if you saw this book and you looked at the numbers and you were like, oh, this is a very profitable book, I should write a book like this. And the answer is maybe, right? And but where, it's sort of like, yes, this book is profitable and it was successful, but I wouldn't advise gambling on those elements because yours might not be. Like it might not turn out that way, and you want to set yourself up for success as much as possible. And so when you read lots of books and you get lots of exposure across styles and genres or subgenres, it just helps you orient yourself so that you don't read a single book and take it as, oh, okay, this is what I should do or what I shouldn't do, right? Like it's just, you need more context to really draw those meaningful conclusions from your reading. And so that's why it's important to always be reading, to constantly, be picking up books and getting that variety as well.
I would say it kind of makes it very interesting that a part of the conversation that we've had in some of our setup conversations about me in this sweet small town romance is really what I like to say is like, are you making logical decisions, right? I think a lot of times we can talk about certain things, and listen, y'all, this does not substitute for craft in of itself, right? Yes. But the other part is that you are always, as a writer, making decisions. You're making a lot of decisions, whether you are doing it intentionally or unintentionally, or you're doing it consciously or subconsciously. You're making a lot of decisions. And I think it's very helpful when you're able to sort of look back and say, okay, this is the landscape, and where do I see my body of work occupying? Because that's where you can really say, okay, here are my personal parameters for where people can find my books. Oh, I'm going to fill this space. I'm going to go from this wall to this wall, and this in front and the back, right? So they'll know. And I think some people can think that that's limiting, but I think it's freeing because you know where you reside. And I find that the best ideas come once you know what your boundaries are. Yeah. When you think everything is a choice, you're overwhelmed.
That's too many options.
Too many, right?
Yeah.
And then once you start saying, okay, I know my protagonists are like this, and this is what I mean by that. When I sit and I'm working with a client and we're working on their brand sheet, we're being very intentional. This is an archetype of your main male characters. Every one of your main male characters should be able to fall within this spectrum. And sometimes we deviate, of course, but having that in the beginning makes it so that a lot of those decisions you've already made, and then you can focus on the story. You can focus on the structure. You can, right? So I would just say, make those decisions, and it's okay to make them logical decisions so that when you get into that space of creativity, you can just let yourself run free.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, that just about does it for Beautifully Cruel. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything that we missed before we wrap for the day?
That regardless of what I said today, this is one of my favorite books. This is one of my favorite books. I love this book. Oh my gosh.
And Liam Black is delicious.
Liam Black is the man. Even with his questionable Irish accent, I love the man. Okay. I would also say that it's when you're going if you are going to look at a genre like this, I don't know if light always does well, just as a general statement.
Yeah.
But I would say, now that you know that there are nuances within it, maybe reading on the extremes and then start finding comps that allows you to settle somewhere within that, so that you have a better gauge of where you want to operate. It makes a difference. I will also say that sometimes, especially if it's one of your earlier times of writing this type of a genre, I think it's really helpful to have beta readers and or a friend, an author friend who writes in the area that you can critique each other. Not to do it ad nauseum, but to do it in a way that, did I do the thing that I set out to do?
Yes.
And my aim is to be within this. Is that what I did? And I think what happens is we don't realize, as writers, we have muscle memory just like any other thing that you do. Mentally, like, we begin to understand, these are my type of ideas. These are the kind of stories I tell. And that is what will help you to shape that. But in the beginning, you may find, like those 1 to 5 books, you may find that you're still redefining that. And every new book that you add until you get into that space, you may find that, okay, I'm getting a little bit better. I mean, we were talking about anywhere between probably 400,000 to maybe 750,000 words, right? That could be spread across those books that are publishable words that you have completed, to be able to then really settle down into, this is the kind of books, these are the kind of stories I tell, these are the types of protagonists I deal with, and these are the types of, happily ever afters I deliver. And so, and have fun. As always, have fun.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that does it for Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for going on this journey with us. I hope you learned, honestly, I hope you learned as much as I did by having these conversations. So, as always, don't forget to like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast, or subscribe on YouTube so you always know when our new episodes go out. And we've been saying this for this whole series. Leave us a comment. Let us know what questions you have. Let us know how you felt about this book. If you also think Liam Black is delicious. And we will be back for our next book pick next week, which is going to be Sin and Chocolate by K.F. Breen, which is a bit of a crossover for Dana and myself, because it's fantasy and romance. And so we're going to dig into our overview of Sin and Chocolate starting next week. So look forward to that. But until then, as always, happy writing.
Happy writing.